Jake Hatch of Locked On Cougars talking all things BYU. If I were to say the transfer portal doesn't even matter, not important, that would be hyperbolic. That would be a little. You're going to have to utilize it. If you don't in this era in college football, your name is Dabo Sweeney, and you're just trying to prove you can come back on the uptrend. If you're BYU though, or Kansas State or Arizona State, the contenders of the Big 12, Iowa State in that conversation too. You just didn't really use the transfer portal for more than 2, 3, 4 pieces that could genuinely compete for a starting job right away. Why is the transfer portal not a point of emphasis for the best teams in the Big 12 right now?
I'll speak from the BYU perspective on this, Dre, because I think when BYU came into the league, they went to the transfer portal very heavily. You're talking about they used the transfer portal thinking, okay, this could really transform things for us. They brought in, I think it was 60 some odd new players in that 2023 football season. What was the result? A 5-7 year. BYU decided the year after that, okay, we're going to bet on continuity a bit more. Went 11-2. And yes, they still have used the transfer portal. I think there'd be 5, 6, maybe 7 guys off the top of my head that they added via the transfer portal this past offseason that probably are going to start or will be in contention to start for BYU, but they're more targeted in terms of who they're chasing in the portal, because I think that they learned that a program like BYU has always been about development, bringing guys in who have multiple years, get ingrained in the culture and the system that BYU operates, and then over time, they will yield better results versus going out and trying to buy guys every single year and just kind of mishmash, putting it together on the fly. There are programs that can do that. BYU, I think, learned in 2023 that's not the way that they can do it. I think that history suggests that Kansas State and Iowa State, they're also in that same mold. They understand that, hey, we're a program that maybe doesn't have the flash or the pizzazz that an Alabama or a LSU has, where they can go out and bring in guys and just kind of just switch parts out and it works out for them. We need to rely on guys who, have maybe 1, 2, 3 years in the portal. We bring them in and then we develop them over time, and the results ultimately speak for themselves.
Yeah, Alabama will get the 4th-year guy out of Texas A&M who plays cornerback and is a 5-star, was in, third-team All-SEC and can develop it under, Kalen DeBoer for a year. BYU, as I say, BYU might not get that guy. In today's era of college football, it seems like BYU from an NIL standpoint is going after that caliber of athlete. Yeah. But the way I would put it is positive attrition. A good point, even Keelan Marion, a good portion of the guys that left BYU, yes, Keelan Marion, good athlete, and can be a game changer from a returning standpoint, or could be a game changer as an athlete. Do you have to have it? Are you going to lose a game, 2, 3 games because he's not there? I don't think so. Will you, in the end, benefit because that spot is open and you can bring in a guy who seems like more of a soapbox? Here we go. I'm not going to say every guy who transfers out of a program is a bad culture fit. And there are some schools, Arkansas is an example, that has, 40 guys in the transfer portal. That's probably not a culture fit thing. It's probably more to do with your program. At a school like Iowa State, BYU, Arizona State, Kansas State, winning at a high level year in and year out, Baylor even right now, where only a handful of guys are transferring out, they're looking for a different opportunity or they're not a good culture fit. And to me, if I'm a head coach of those programs, I say, okay, the door is right there. Thank you for your time. You enjoy your life at the next school. You were not right for us. To me, positive attrition works in BYU's favor with the way the Cougars have attacked the transfer portal, similar to other Big 12 contenders this offseason.
Well, and I'll speak on the Keelan Marion thing. BYU would love to have him in Provo, Drake. Absolutely, because he's an All-American kick returner. You don't grow those guys on a tree.
For sure.
But the other side of it is BYU's trying to build up right now a program that's going to fit within this new structure of the House settlement, should it ever get approved. That's another story for another day. But they have a revenue share, and they're approaching this as if it's an NFL salary cap. And the money that a guy like Keelan Marion was asking for from BYU did not fit within the structure of what they were looking at paying NIL wise and with the revenue share. And they didn't want to set a bad precedent with going over what they call the cap or whatever their number is to appease this kid, thinking, hey, that sets a bad precedent for somebody else who decides, hey, I'm worth this, pay me that. That would obviously hurt BYU in this era when they're trying to balance things. Yes, BYU's got pretty good funding when it comes to NIL. That's very clear. We've seen it with basketball and football.
Correct. Yeah.
But the fact is they also want to be smart with how they go about this and not be appeasing everybody all the time and really having to put themselves in some bad situations when players think, hey, I can really hold these guys. And I use the term hostage, but maybe it doesn't fit correctly, but that's kind of what it feels like in certain circumstances.
For sure. It's the case the Wisconsin kid who went to Miami.
Exactly.
If you signed a 2-year contract and after the first year, you're like, well, they're going to pay me way more. I have a better opportunity. I can go to the NFL. Miami and Wisconsin's not good. I can't handcuff you to a desk at your day job when you ask to quit or put in your 2 weeks. I can't demand you give me the highest level you've got for the next year because that's how long your contract is. No, there are legal ways to exit a contract in any job. And you cannot force, nope, you're our wide receiver. You're our kick returner, our corner. You must play for us. Of course, the guy won't give 100% in what he does. So it only helps that guy exits your program in the end. And you mentioned, well,
I just wanted to say one thing I also mentioned about Kalani Sitake, even before the transfer portal was a thing, guys would transfer. And Kalani's whole philosophy has been, we know that BYU is unique. We know what the structure on BYU is. If it doesn't work for you, we're not going to make you feel bad about that. We're going to make sure you go out and find the right opportunity for yourself and have a positive college experience. That's been his philosophy since day one, almost 10 years ago, showing up at BYU. And I love that mentality. A lot of head coaches don't have that. It's my way or the highway. But that's one thing Kalani's always held to is that BYU may not be for everybody. We'll try and help you understand what it's about and help you have a positive experience. But if it ultimately is not your thing, we'll make sure we find a spot for you where you can thrive and ultimately have a positive experience with football.
Yeah, I love that. If you want to leave, it behooves both parties that you go. If you stay tied to BYU because there's some obligation contractually or from a school or education standpoint, then you're not going to give your all the same way a guy who is just dying to play for the Cougars would. You want that roster spot for a guy who's going to give you 100%. I think I want to commend what the top schools in the Big 12 have done in the trade. And I don't want to take away from Texas Tech. I don't. Or Houston, who have attacked the portal hard and brought in Kansas. Really good players because they had to. Because last year was disappointing in some way, and they wanted to flex out of the portal. They can build a stronger team. I commend them, but I double commend the stalwarts, the consistent big dogs in the Big 12 are schools that are building to become that in the likes of a BYU, Iowa State, Arizona State, Kansas State, and even Baylor, who had a very similar attack. Jake Hatch, where can more folks, especially as the Jake Retzloff situation unfolds, where can more folks find your work?
As the Jake Retzloff news turns is what it feels like around these parts. But yeah, I Locked On Cougars, available wherever you get your podcasts, also available on YouTube. You also can follow the show on social media, Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter at Locked On Cougars. And if you want my thoughts on all things BYU or otherwise, I'm also on X/Twitter at Jacob C. Hatch.
That is Jake Hatch. This has been and always will be Locked On. Thanks for making it your first listen every single day. Crossover with Cougars and Dose Grande.